The arrival of the Empire. The Galactic Empire was known across the stars as an unstoppable force. Its fleet of massive ships had conquered hundreds of planets, enslaving countless species. To them, Earth was just another target, a small primitive planet on the edge of the galaxy. The Empire's commander, Lord Derek, stared at the glowing blue sphere on his holoscreen and smirked. "Pathetic," he muttered. "No shields, no orbital defenses, and no fleet. This will be over in an hour." The Empire's flagship, Dominion, led the way as hundreds of warships emerged from hyperspace. Their weapons gleamed under the faint light of Earth's sun. The fleet moved with the precision of a machine, surrounding Earth like a net. To Lord Derek, this was routine, a conquest so easy it almost felt boring. "Prepare the broadcast," he commanded. A signal was sent to Earth. Every screen, every device, and every radio across the planet suddenly displayed the same image. Lord Derek's stern face, his voice boomed in a language every human could understand. "People of Earth, you now face the might of the Galactic Empire. Surrender immediately, and you will be spared. Resist, and your planet will burn. You have 1 hour to decide." On the bridge of the Dominion, officers began preparing for battle. They expected chaos, panic, and desperate pleas for mercy. But something unexpected happened instead. A sound echoed across the Empire's communication systems. It wasn't a cry for help or a signal of surrender. It was laughter. It was a deep, rolling laugh, calm and confident. It came from a single human transmission, simple and clear. Lord Derek frowned, his face turning red with anger. What is this mockery? Who dares laugh at the Empire? The laughter faded, and a calm human voice followed. Welcome to Earth. Proceed if you dare. The transmission ended abruptly. The bridge of the Dominion fell silent. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Was this defiance or madness? Commander, an officer said hesitantly, should we investigate further? This could be a trap. Trap. Lord Derek barked. These humans have no technology worth fearing. Their arrogance will cost them dearly. Begin the assault. Target their largest cities. As the fleet prepared to fire, the Empire's advanced scanners picked up something strange. There were energy fluctuations near the moon, faint but irregular. It was as if something was hiding there, but the scanners couldn't pinpoint it. Send a scout ship, Derek ordered. I want a full report. A sleek Empire scout ship broke away from the fleet and sped toward the moon. It was equipped with the best sensors and cloaking technology designed to detect even the slightest threat. The crew on board felt confident. After all, what could a backward planet like Earth possibly do to them? As the scout ship approached the moon, the strange readings grew stronger. The crew stared at their screens, puzzled. This doesn't make sense, one of them said. The energy levels are unstable. It's like the source is moving, but there's nothing visible. Before they could analyze further, their ship's systems flickered. Lights dimmed, controls froze, and alarms blared. Report, the captain shouted. Unknown interference, a crew member replied. We're losing power. The scout ship's engines sputtered and died. The last thing the crew saw before their ship went dark was a massive shadow, faint and indistinct, moving past them. Then, silence. Back on the Dominion, the bridge crew watched in shock as the scout ship's signal disappeared from their screens. Contact lost, an officer reported. What do you mean, lost? Derek demanded. No debris detected, no explosion. It's just gone. Derek clenched his fists. Send another ship. Find out what happened. As the second ship prepared to launch, a new transmission arrived from Earth. Once again, it was the same calm human voice. We told you to proceed if you dare. Your scout ship won't be returning. Maybe you should leave while you still can. The crew on the Dominion felt a chill. For the first time in his career, Lord Derek hesitated. Was this arrogance from a primitive race? Or was there something they didn't know about Earth? "Commander," another officer whispered, "perhaps we should reassess the situation. Their technology might not be as primitive as it seems." "Nonsense," Derek snapped. "This is a bluff. They're trying to intimidate us. We are the Empire. We do not retreat." But as he stared at the blue planet on the holoscreen, a tiny seed of doubt began to grow in his mind. The humans weren't panicking. They weren't begging for mercy. And that laugh, it echoed in his thoughts like a warning. "Hold the fleet position," he finally ordered. "We'll proceed carefully." Unbeknownst to the Empire, Earth had been waiting for this day, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy why they were not to be underestimated. First contact. The silence on the Dominion's bridge was heavy, broken only by the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Lord Derek paced, his boots clicking sharply against the polished floor. A second scout ship had been dispatched, and its crew was sending regular updates as they neared the moon. "This time, no mistakes," Derek muttered. "I want answers." The crew of the second scout ship, the Vanguard, was tense. The unexplained disappearance of the first ship had shaken their confidence, but their training left no room for hesitation. As they approached the moon, the strange energy fluctuations grew stronger, almost as if they were alive. The readings on their instruments danced wildly, defying logic. "Captain," a crew member said nervously, "these readings, they're unlike anything we've encountered before. It's as if the moon itself is emitting signals." "Focus," the captain replied, his voice steady. "Keep scanning. We need to find out what happened to the first scout ship." The ship's sensors began to pick up fragments of wreckage, scattered like breadcrumbs near the moon's shadowed surface. But something was odd. The wreckage didn't match the design of the first scout ship. It looked older, and it wasn't Imperial. "What is this?" the captain murmured. "Run an analysis." As the crew worked to identify the debris, a new signal appeared on their sensors. It was faint at first, but rapidly grew stronger, coming from directly behind them. The crew spun in their seats, their eyes widening. "Unidentified object approaching," one of them shouted. The captain turned toward the viewing screen just in time to see a blur of motion. A sleek, black craft shot past the Vanguard, moving so fast that their sensors couldn't lock onto it. The alien ship was unlike anything the Empire had seen. Sharp, angular, and eerily silent. It moved like a shadow, weaving between the Vanguard and the moon. "Commander Derek, are you seeing this?" the captain said, transmitting back to the Dominion. "We're being..." The signal cut off. On the Dominion, Lord Derek and his crew stared in disbelief as the Vanguard's icon disappeared from their tactical display. No explosion, no debris, just gone. "Another one," Derek hissed through clenched teeth. "What is happening out there?" The answer came moments later. A new transmission from Earth flickered onto the holoscreen. This time, the voice was calm but carried a sharper edge. "Your second ship was warned but didn't listen. That's 2 now. How many more are you willing to lose?" The image shifted, revealing the black craft that had intercepted the Vanguard. It hovered in front of Earth, its sharp edges gleaming faintly in the sunlight. Then, one by one, dozens of identical ships appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the Empire's fleet. They had been hiding in plain sight, invisible to even the Empire's advanced sensors. What are those?" an officer stammered, his voice trembling. Derek narrowed his eyes. "They're human ships. Primitive, perhaps, but somehow effective." A burst of laughter erupted from the transmission. It was the same mocking tone they'd heard before. "Primitive," the voice repeated. "Oh, Commander, you really don't understand, do you? Your technology is impressive, yes. But you've been so focused on conquering others that you missed the real progress happening right under your noses." The human ships began to move, their formation tightening. One of them darted forward, stopping mere kilometers from the Dominion. The Empire's weapons locked onto it, but the human ship didn't flinch. "Shall we test your reflexes?" the human voice taunted. "Or will you finally admit you're out of your depth?" Daruk's patience snapped. "Fire," he roared. The Dominion unleashed a barrage of plasma cannons, lighting up the void with blinding energy. The human ship didn't move. Instead, a shimmering field appeared around it, absorbing the attack like a drop of water on a sponge. The plasma dissipated harmlessly. "What?" Daruk shouted. "How is that possible?" The human ship responded instantly. It emitted a single pulse of energy, silent, almost invisible. The pulse rippled outward, striking the Dominion and several nearby ships. Alarms blared as systems failed across the Imperial fleet. Lights flickered, weapons powered down, and engines stalled. "We've lost propulsion," an officer cried. "Weapons offline. Shields are collapsing." Daruk gripped the edge of his command console, his face pale. "Impossible. This is impossible." Another human ship moved forward, its sleek form cutting through the chaos. This time, a face appeared on the screen, a human, middle-aged, with calm eyes and a faint smile. "You brought this on yourselves, Commander," the man said. "We've been watching your empire for centuries. You've crushed weaker species, exploited the innocent, and grown arrogant. But you never stopped to ask one important question." Daruk's voice was a hoarse whisper. "What question?" The human leaned closer, his smile widening. "What happens when you meet a species that's been preparing for you?" The screen went dark. Outside, the human ships tightened their formation, cutting off every escape route. For the first time in his career, Lord Daruk felt true fear. The mighty Galactic Empire, conqueror of worlds, had finally encountered a power it couldn't understand, and might not survive. The trap. The Empire's fleet hung in orbit like a frozen beast, its once mighty presence reduced to silence. On board the Dominion, Lord Daruk stood motionless, staring at the holoscreen. The human ships, sleek, dark, and unnervingly quiet, moved with precision, encircling his fleet like predators circling prey. He hated how small they made his colossal warships feel. "Commander, what are your orders?" an officer asked, his voice trembling. Daruk's fist slammed onto the console. "We do not retreat. Order all remaining ships to form a defensive line. Prepare for a counterattack." The officer hesitated. "But sir, our weapons are still offline." "Do as I say," Daruk barked. "We will not be humiliated by these primitives." The officer relayed the command, but deep down, everyone on the bridge felt the same gnawing doubt. The humans were not acting like any enemy they had ever faced. They weren't rushing to attack, nor were they demanding terms. Instead, they waited, their silent ships floating just out of reach. It was as if they were toying with the Empire. Suddenly, the bridge lights flickered, and an alert blared through the ship. "Commander," a technician shouted, "we've detected an unauthorized intrusion into our main systems." Daruk's eyes narrowed. "An attack? From where?" The technician's hands flew across the console. "It's coming from inside our fleet." "No, wait. It's bouncing between ships. Their systems are being hijacked one by one." "What?" Daruk roared. "How?" The technician's voice wavered. "It's not physical. It's a data signal, something our firewalls can't stop. They're rewiring our ships." As if on cue, the holoscreen shifted to display the Empire's fleet. One by one, the massive warships began to move, turning, adjusting their formations, and breaking ranks. But they weren't responding to Imperial commands. "Sir," another officer said, his voice shaking, "they're taking control of our fleet." Daruk watched in horror as the Empire's pride, the finest warships in the galaxy, aligned themselves to form a single line. The human fleet had done nothing but watch, yet they now held the Empire's most advanced technology hostage. Before Daruk could issue another command, a transmission cut through the chaos. The screen flickered, and the face of the same calm, middle-aged human appeared. His expression was almost apologetic. "Commander Darok," the man began, his tone polite but firm. "We warned you to leave. This isn't a battle you can win." Darok clenched his fists. "You think your cheap tricks will stop the Empire? You're nothing but a backwater species." The human raised an eyebrow. "Backwater? Interesting choice of words. Let me show you what backwater really means." The transmission ended, and a strange, deep hum filled the air. It wasn't coming from the Empire's ships. It was coming from space itself. The hum grew louder, resonating through the hulls of every Imperial ship. Lights flickered, instruments failed, and the void outside seemed to ripple. "What is that?" an officer whispered, fear creeping into his voice. The answer came quickly. The space around the Empire's fleet began to shift, distorting like the surface of a disturbed pond. A massive structure emerged from the darkness. No, not a structure. It was a field of energy, shimmering and pulsating, forming a giant sphere around the fleet. "It's a containment field," the technician said, his face pale. "They've trapped us." Darok's jaw tightened. Impossible. Nothing can generate a field that large. Nothing. But the evidence was right before him. The Empire's fleet, once free to dominate the stars, was now caged like animals. The humans had not fired a single shot, yet they held the Empire at their mercy. "Sir," another officer said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we're receiving a message from the field." Darok turned sharply. "From the field?" The officer nodded and played the transmission. The same human voice spoke, but this time it came from everywhere, from the walls, the consoles, the very air. "Commander Darok," the voice said, calm and deliberate. "Your fleet is now under our control. Your weapons, your engines, your communications, all belong to us. You have two choices: surrender or stay here, trapped until your resources run out. The decision is yours." Darok's rage boiled over. "How dare you threaten the Empire? We will not." The voice interrupted, sharp and cutting. "This isn't a threat, Commander. It's a fact. You thought you could bully your way through the galaxy, but humanity has been watching your empire for centuries. We've studied your strategies, your technology, your arrogance, and we've prepared." The human ships began to move, closing the gap between them and the Imperial fleet. Their engines emitted no sound, their weapons remained cold, yet their presence was overwhelming. Darok stared at the screen, his mind racing. He had never felt this powerless, this small. The Empire's might meant nothing here. These humans had turned their own fleet against them, caged them like animals, and now waited for their next move. What do they want?" an officer asked, breaking the silence. Darok didn't answer. He couldn't. For the first time in his life, he realized the Empire might not be the most powerful force in the galaxy. The revelation. The Dominion was silent except for the hum of emergency lights and the faint hiss of oxygen vents. Lord Darok sat in his command chair, staring at the containment field displayed on the holoscreen. It shimmered faintly, an elegant cage around the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. Despite his anger, there was a knot of fear in his chest, an emotion he had never allowed himself to feel. "What are they waiting for?" he growled, his voice low but filled with frustration. "Why don't they just attack?" An officer hesitated before responding, her voice barely above a whisper. "Commander, it's possible. They don't need to." Darok's eyes burned into her. "Explain yourself." "They've neutralized our weapons, disabled our engines, and trapped us in this field. We've never encountered anything like this. They could destroy us if they wanted, but instead, they're waiting." "Waiting for what?" Darok snapped. Before she could answer, the holoscreen flickered, and the face of the same human appeared once more. This time, his expression was calm, but edged with something darker. An unmistakable confidence that sent a chill through the bridge. "Commander Darok," the human began, I imagine you're asking yourself why we haven't destroyed your fleet yet. Allow me to explain. Darroch leaned forward, his fists clenched. You've been lucky so far. Nothing more. The human smirked. Luck? Is that what you call centuries of preparation? You see, Commander, while your empire was busy expanding its borders, we were busy perfecting something far more important than conquest. Knowledge. The screen shifted, showing a detailed schematic of the Empire's flagship, the Dominion. Every system, every weapon, every critical component was displayed in excruciating detail. How did you get this? Darroch demanded, his voice shaking. The human's voice remained steady. We've been studying your empire for over a century. Your ships, your technology, even your tactics. You see, humanity learned long ago that brute force isn't the answer to survival. You can conquer a planet, Commander, but knowledge. Knowledge conquers everything. The schematic zoomed out, showing the entire Imperial fleet surrounded by the containment field. Lines of data flowed across the screen, showing how every ship had been systematically disabled without firing a single shot. We've monitored your every move, the human continued. Your fleet's arrival in this system. We saw it coming before you even left hyperspace. Your weapons, impressive, but predictable. And this containment field you're trapped in, it's powered by your own ships. Every time you try to resist, you're only making it stronger. Darroch felt his stomach churn. You're bluffing. No species could do this. No species. You keep calling us a species, the human interrupted, his tone sharp. As if we're just another race for you to conquer. But humanity is more than that. We are innovators. Survivors. While your empire grew fat on domination, we turned our focus inward, perfecting our minds, our science, our technology. And now, here we are. The holo screen shifted again, this time showing Earth. But it wasn't the Earth Darroch expected. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the planet, bristling with weapons and sensors. Ships, human ships, moved in coordinated formations, their designs elegant and streamlined. On the planet's surface, cities glowed with energy, shielded by invisible barriers. It was a fortress, hidden in plain sight. Earth isn't just a planet, the human said. It's a sanctuary, a place we've protected from prying eyes for centuries. Every time your empire thought it was expanding, we were watching, waiting. Darroch's voice cracked with rage. If you've been hiding, why reveal yourselves now? Why not stay in the shadows? The human's expression hardened. Because we needed you to understand something, Commander. You're not the apex predator you believe yourself to be. The galaxy isn't yours to dominate, and if you continue to threaten it, you'll find that humanity doesn't just defend itself, we end conflicts permanently. The room grew colder as the weight of the human's words sank in. Darroch's officers exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence shattered. The human leaned closer to the camera, his eyes piercing. We're giving you a choice, Commander. Leave this system and never return. Or, if you prefer, we can demonstrate what happens when the Empire pushes too far. Darroch's instincts screamed at him to retaliate, to fight back, but his logic held him in place. He was a veteran of countless wars, yet he had never faced an enemy like this, one that didn't rely on brute strength but on complete, unshakable control. Why let us go? He asked, his voice quieter now. If you're as powerful as you say, why not destroy us? The human smiled faintly. Because we're not conquerors, Commander. We don't destroy unless we have to. And frankly, we'd prefer to avoid the mess. But don't mistake our restraint for weakness. If you return, there won't be a second warning. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Darroch slumped back in his chair, his mind racing. His officers waited for his command, their fear palpable. For the first time in his career, Lord Darroch faced a decision he couldn't make. We retreat, he said finally, his voice hollow. Order the fleet to stand down. We're leaving. The officers hesitated, stunned by the words coming from their usually unshakable leader. "Do it," he snapped. As the fleet powered down and began to retreat, the human ships moved aside, their formation opening just enough to let them pass. The containment field dissolved, and the void of space felt emptier than ever. As the Empire's fleet limped back to hyperspace, Darroch cast one last glance at the blue planet on the holoscreen. Humanity wasn't just another species. They were something else entirely, something the Empire had no answer for. The counterattack. The Galactic Empire's fleet limped away from Earth, silent and humiliated. But not all of them made it out. A handful of ships remained, their hyperdrives mysteriously inoperable. The containment field dissolved around them, leaving them exposed and isolated in Earth's orbit. The crew aboard these ships scrambled for answers, unaware they were about to experience something far worse than failure. On the Dominion, Lord Darroch paced furiously. His pride burned hotter than the twin suns of his homeworld. Retreating was an unthinkable act, but it was now the only choice left of him. Or so he thought. "Commander," an officer said, his voice trembling, "several ships are reporting critical system failures. They're unable to join the retreat." Darroch froze, his fury replaced by dread. "What do you mean they're unable?" The officer hesitated. "Their engines won't respond. Their weapons are offline. It's as if they're being held back." Darroch slammed his fist onto the console. "They're baiting us. Those humans. This is their trap." Before he could issue further commands, a new transmission came through. It wasn't from the humans this time. It was from one of the stranded Imperial ships. The image was grainy, the audio filled with static, but the message was clear. "They're boarding us," the voice said, panicked and rushed. "Human forces are on our ship." They appeared out of nowhere. No warning, no signs. The message cut off abruptly, leaving only silence. Darroch's face paled. Humans, boarding an Imperial warship. Impossible. Another transmission followed, this time from a second stranded ship. The scene on the screen was chaos. Imperial soldiers fired their weapons down a dark corridor, but their shots hit nothing. Shadows flickered, and strange shapes moved just out of sight. Then, one by one, the soldiers were pulled into the darkness, their screams cutting through the static. "We can't fight them," a voice screamed. They're not using weapons. The feed ended. Darroch's officers looked to him, their faces pale with fear. For the first time, the indomitable Empire found itself not in a war, but in a nightmare. Inside the stranded ships, the humans didn't board like traditional invaders. They didn't storm the corridors or blow through the airlocks. They appeared silently, their forms cloaked in dark, adaptive suits that seemed to merge with the shadows. They moved with precision, disarming Imperial soldiers and disabling key systems without a single word. One by one, they took control of the stranded ships. But instead of killing, they left the crews unharmed, unconscious and restrained. It was psychological warfare at its finest, showing dominance without unnecessary bloodshed. In the command center of one ship, the human leader stood over a subdued Imperial officer. The officer trembled as the human's helmet retracted, revealing a woman's calm, calculating face. Her voice was quiet but filled with authority. "Tell your commander this. You were spared because we chose to spare you. Next time, we won't." She placed a small device on the control panel, pressed a button, and disappeared in a flash of light. Seconds later, the ship's systems rebooted, and its crew awoke to find themselves drifting helplessly in space. The countermessage. Back on the Dominion, the bridge crew watched as the remaining stranded ships reappeared on their tactical display. Darroch's eyes narrowed as he noticed something strange. Each ship's transponder was now transmitting a message on all frequencies. He ordered it played on the main screen. The message wasn't a voice this time. It was a single image. Earth, surrounded by human ships, with a simple caption written in Imperial Common. "Do not test us again. Darroch slammed his fist against the console, his fury barely contained. They mock us. They dare humiliate the Empire. Commander, an officer interjected nervously. Our fleet is still in disarray. We've already lost 2 scout ships, and now our own vessels are being used to deliver their warnings. What if they attack again? Darroch glared at the officer, but the words lingered. What if they attacked again? This wasn't a battle he could win with firepower. It wasn't even a battle he could predict. The humans didn't fight like any species the Empire had encountered. They didn't rely on overwhelming numbers or brute strength. They fought with precision, restraint, and a terrifying confidence that suggested they had already won before the first shot was fired. They're forcing us into submission, Darroch muttered to himself, his anger giving way to a cold realization. This isn't just a defeat, it's a message to the galaxy. Earth's next move. As the Imperial fleet regrouped and prepared to retreat, the human fleet remained still, watching. The humans didn't chase, didn't attack. They didn't need to. Their message had been delivered. Back on Earth, in a secure command center deep beneath the surface, a group of human leaders watched the events unfold on massive screens. The middle-aged man who had spoken to Darroch earlier stood at the head of the table, his expression calm but focused. "We've made our point," he said, his voice steady. "Now we wait." Another leader, a woman with sharp eyes, frowned. "Do you think they'll listen?" "They don't have a choice," the man replied. "The Empire thrives on fear, on dominance. But now, they've seen what happens when they meet someone who isn't afraid. It's not just about the Empire anymore. The entire galaxy is watching. They know humanity isn't a target, it's a force." The room fell silent as the leaders considered the weight of their actions. For centuries, humanity had hidden its strength, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Now, that moment had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. Cliffhanger for Part 6. The scene shifts back to the Imperial fleet as they jump to hyperspace. Lord Darroch sits alone in his quarters, staring at the image of Earth still flickering on his personal screen. His mind churns with anger, fear, and something new. Doubt. As the Dominion vanishes into hyperspace, a single human ship breaks formation and follows, cloaked in shadow. Humanity's message may have been delivered, but their work is far from done. The surrender. The Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace, battered and shaken. Even in the safety of their home territory, the officers aboard the Dominion felt no relief. The encounter with the humans had left scars, not just on their fleet, but on their collective confidence. Lord Darroch sat in his quarters, his eyes fixed on a holo image of Earth. He replayed the events over and over, searching for a flaw in the human strategy, a weakness he could exploit, but none revealed itself. A chime interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he barked. An officer stepped in, his face pale. "Commander, a situation has arisen." Darroch's gaze darkened. "What now?" "We've detected an unauthorized signal within our fleet. It appears to be coming from one of our own ships." Darroch's heart sank. The humans. "Yes, sir," the officer confirmed. "They've sent us another message." "Play it," Darroch ordered, his voice strained. The holo screen flickered, and the same human appeared. This time, his expression was serious, devoid of the earlier smugness. "Commander Darroch," the human began, "by now, you understand that this isn't just about Earth. Your empire has spent centuries expanding through fear and violence, but you've encountered something new. Resistance, not from a military force, but from an idea. The idea that your power isn't absolute." Darroch's fists clenched. He wanted to smash the screen, but something in the human's tone stopped him. "We've spared your fleet," the human continued, "not because we're merciful, but because we wanted you to carry this message back to your leaders. The galaxy is changing, and the days of unchecked conquest are over. If your empire continues its path, you won't just face humanity. you'll face the entire galaxy united against you." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room in heavy silence. The human shadow. Unbeknownst to Darroch, the humans had not only sent a message, they had followed the fleet. A single human ship, cloaked and undetectable, drifted just outside the Empire's home system. Its purpose wasn't to attack, but to observe, to ensure the message was understood. Inside the stealth ship, Captain Elena Drake monitored the Imperial fleet's movements. Her crew worked in silence, their focus absolute. They weren't here to fight. They were here to ensure that the Empire understood humanity's power wasn't just physical but psychological. "Captain," a technician whispered, "the fleet is regrouping, but their communications are subdued. It seems the commander is reluctant to report the full extent of their defeat." Elena nodded. "He's still trying to save face. Typical of empires built on arrogance, but it won't last." She turned to her second-in-command. "Prepare the second phase. It's time to make sure they never forget this encounter." The Emperor's Council. Back on the Imperial capital, Darroch stood before the Emperor's Council, a group of stern, ancient figures who governed the Empire's vast territories. They listened in stony silence as Darroch recounted the events, omitting the finer details of his humiliation. He framed the humans as a cunning but manageable threat, downplaying their capabilities. When he finished, one of the council members leaned forward. "You mean to tell us that a single species, confined to one planet, managed to disable our fleet without firing a shot?" Darroch hesitated. "Their technology is advanced, yes, but with time, we can counter it." The council member's eyes narrowed. "With time. You failed, Darroch. You brought shame to this empire. And now you stand here asking for more resources to fight a battle you've already lost." Before Darroch could respond, the chamber lights dimmed. A low hum filled the air, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It was Earth, surrounded by the human fleet. The council members looked at each other, confused and alarmed. "What is the meaning of this?" one of them demanded. A voice echoed through the chamber, calm and measured. It was the human leader again. "Greetings, esteemed council. I trust Commander Darroch has told you part of the truth, but allow me to fill in the gaps." The human's image flickered to show the containment field, the disabled Imperial ships, and the black, unyielding fleet surrounding Earth. "This is not an act of war," the human continued. "This is a warning. Your empire's time of unchecked expansion is over. Humanity does not seek conquest, but we will not allow you to bully the galaxy any longer. Your weapons, your fleets, your armies, none of them matter if your enemy knows how to dismantle them before the first shot is fired." The council members sat in stunned silence as the hologram shifted to display a map of the galaxy. Key Imperial territories lit up, and next to them, numbers appeared: casualties, resources stolen, planets enslaved. It was a history of the Empire's conquests, laid bare. "Every action has consequences," the human said. "You thought no one was watching, but we were. And now, the galaxy will no longer stand idle. You can choose to adapt and join a future of cooperation, or you can cling to the past and face extinction. The choice is yours." The hologram vanished, and the lights returned. The council erupted into argument, but Darroch stood frozen. The humans had infiltrated their most secure systems, delivered a message directly to their leaders, and vanished without a trace. This was no longer a battle, it was a reckoning. The Empire's next move. Days passed, and the council deliberated endlessly. Some called for retaliation, while others advocated for diplomacy. But in the end, the decision came from the Emperor himself, a figure shrouded in mystery and feared across the galaxy. "We will not fight a war we cannot win," the Emperor decreed. "If the humans wish for peace, we will entertain their terms. But if they strike again, we will burn their planet to ash, no matter the cost." Darroch left the chamber with a heavy heart. He knew the Empire's pride wouldn't allow them to stay peaceful for long. And deep down, He feared the humans were already 2 steps ahead. The chuckle heard across the galaxy. The Galactic Empire's surrender sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Once seen as an unassailable colossus, the Empire was now a fractured shadow of its former self. Its fleets withdrew from contested territories, leaving behind confusion and opportunities. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to stir with the possibility of rebellion. On Earth, humanity celebrated quietly. There were no parades, no grand proclamations. The leaders knew their victory wasn't just over the Empire, it was over fear. And the battle wasn't finished. They watched as their carefully laid plans unfolded, moving the galaxy toward a tipping point. Whispers of rebellion. In the shadowed corridors of countless planets, the seeds of revolution began to sprout. Species long subjugated by the Empire whispered stories of humanity's defiance. The name Earth spread like wildfire, carried on the hopes of those who had endured centuries of oppression. On the mining colony of Zaltra Prime, a group of enslaved workers gathered in secret. One of them, a weathered alien with deep scars, recounted the story he had overheard from a passing trader. "They say the humans didn't fire a single shot," he said, his voice trembling with awe. "They turned the Empire's weapons against them, made their mighty fleet look like toys. If the humans can stand against the Empire, why can't we?" The group nodded in agreement. Hope burned in their eyes for the first time in generations. The Empire's desperation. Back on the Imperial capital, Lord Daruk stood before the Emperor. The chamber was dark, the air heavy with tension. Daruk's failure had not been forgotten, but he had been spared punishment, for now. "We are losing control," the Emperor said, his voice a low growl. "The galaxy sees our retreat as weakness. If we do not act swiftly, there will be chaos." Daruk bowed his head. "Your Excellency, the humans." "Forget the humans," the Emperor snapped. "Their interference is done. What matters now is maintaining our grip on the galaxy." Daruk hesitated. He wanted to argue, to warn the Emperor that humanity wasn't finished, but he knew it was futile. The Emperor's pride blinded him to the larger threat. As Daruk left the chamber, he received a private message on his personal device. It was from an unknown source, encrypted beyond Imperial capabilities. When he opened it, his blood ran cold. The message was simple. "We're still watching." The unseen war. While the Empire scrambled to maintain control, humanity's influence spread like an invisible hand. Their advanced technology allowed them to infiltrate Imperial communications, disrupt supply lines, and embolden resistance movements across the galaxy. Every rebellion, every uprising, had humanity's fingerprints on it, though no one could prove it. In one of Earth's underground command centers, Captain Alina Drake observed the growing unrest. Screens displayed live feeds from dozens of planets, each showing the collapse of Imperial control. "It's working," her second-in-command said. "The Empire is stretched too thin to respond effectively." Alina nodded. "But it's not enough. The galaxy needs to see the Empire fall completely." "What's the next move?" the officer asked. Alina smiled faintly. "We give them one final push." The final blow. The Empire's largest shipyard, orbiting the gas giant Philaxis, was its most heavily guarded facility. It produced the behemoth warships that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. If anything symbolized the Empire's dominance, it was this shipyard. One quiet night, alarms blared across the facility as an unidentified object appeared on the edge of the system. Imperial ships scrambled to intercept, but the object was small and unarmed. A simple probe. "What is this?" the shipyard commander demanded, staring at the holoscreen. "A diversion." The probe transmitted a single image before self-destructing. The Earth, with the words, "This ends now." Moments later, the shipyard systems began to fail. Docked ships powered down, assembly lines ground to a halt, and defensive weapons went offline. Human operatives, cloaked in advanced stealth technology, had infiltrated the facility weeks earlier, planting devices that now activated in perfect synchrony. Across the galaxy, rebel forces coordinated with precision, striking Imperial strongholds and cutting off supply chains. It wasn't a chaotic uprising. It was a calculated dismantling of the Empire's power, orchestrated by unseen hands. The Emperor's fall. The Emperor, now isolated and furious, issued desperate orders for retaliation. But his fleet was scattered, his resources depleted, and his enemies emboldened. The Empire's governors began to defect, aligning themselves with the growing coalition of free worlds. In the final days of the Empire, a transmission was broadcast across the galaxy. It was the human leader, his face calm but resolute. To all species of the galaxy, he began, "This is not just a victory for humanity. It is a victory for freedom." The Empire ruled through fear and violence, but now, the galaxy stands united against it. We are not your conquerors. We are your allies. Together, we will build a future where no one rules through oppression. The broadcast ended with the image of Earth, now a symbol of hope for the galaxy. A new dawn. With the Empire's collapse, a coalition of free worlds was formed, led by species that had once been enemies. Humanity, though pivotal in the victory, chose not to lead. Instead, they remained in the background, ensuring the galaxy's newfound peace was not corrupted. On Earth, life continued quietly. Humanity had revealed itself only as much as necessary, content to let its actions speak louder than its words. In a quiet conference room beneath the surface, Captain Elena Drake met with her team. The galaxy was stabilizing, but they all knew the work wasn't over. "Do you think they'll ever come back?" one of her officers asked. Elena smirked. "The Empire? No, they've learned their lesson. But if anyone else tries, we'll be ready." She glanced at the screen, which displayed a simple message sent anonymously to every corner of the galaxy. "Earth is open to visitors. Just don't bring trouble."